Sometimes my screen recording software works and sometimes it doesn't. So this week it didn't work. So I'm going to re-record this stuff and hopefully it'll just be a shorter video, guys, for you to review. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to model these two objects. We have a bottle and we have a mug. So let me just delete these and we'll start from scratch. So for the bottle, we're going to create go to create and go to polygon primitives and go to cylinder. And we want to add some sections to this so we have some resolution to change the shape of it. So when you create your cylinder, there's construction history, and you could find that over on the right side in the channel box. This window here is called the channel box. There's this little tab here that says channel box on it. And we have a section called inputs, and underneath that we have our construction history. And right now the only thing that's there is this poly cylinder 1, and that allows us to change the the radius, the height, all these different things, subdivisions along the axes, and then subdivisions in the height. So let's change subdivisions in height to 10, and let's change the subdivisions in the cap to 5. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we want enough resolution and vertices along the height to give it that bottle profile, and then we want some resolution on the bottom to make that little indentation you see on the bottom of a bottle. So the first thing we need to do is make an opening in the top of the bottle. So we need to delete these faces on the top, and there's different ways to select these faces and delete them. I'm going to show you each way, and you could pick which way you find makes more sense in your brain. So first thing we need to do is right click and go to faces, so that way we could actually select faces. Now the simplest way, I mean not the simplest, but the longest, most painful thing would be to grab the select tool, which is this little arrow on the upper left here, or you could hit the Q button on your keyboard, the hotkey Q. That'll get you the select tool. You could go through and click, hold down shift, and start to click all of these and just go through and select every face on here. That's one way. Another way is there's a paint selection tool, which is the third tool down. It looks like a paintbrush with like a dotted lasso around it. So you click that, and right now like the fall off is really huge. You can see this red circle. If I click it, it just like selects way too much. So I'm going to hit Z to undo, and if I hold down the B key and the middle mouse drag, I could set my fall off, and now I could just start to paint a selection like this. And just kind of pan around, because sometimes, look, I had an extra face selected, and if I were to hit delete or backspace, it would delete that face, and I don't want that. So if you have an extra face selected, you can hold down control, and this is with the paint selection tool. Hold down control, and then you could deselect like this. But then I deselected too much, so I'll let go of control, and then I'll just reselect those faces. So that's another way to do it. I'll show you a couple extra ways here. Another way is just to kind of pan. This is what we did in the class. We just kind of looked at it from the side, grab the selection tool, and just draw a box, draw a marquee to select those top faces. We also have these side faces selected, which we don't want. So I could hold down control and deselect those like this. There's so many ways to do things in Maya. Since this is the video and you could kind of skip and pause and rewind, feel free to try all these. You could go to vertices, so you could right click and go to vertex, select this middle vertex. You could then hold down control, right click, and convert this selection to faces. So at the bottom here you see two faces, and then again it's going to ask you again, go to faces. So then it converts that to faces, and then if you hold down control, right click again, you could go to grow selection, and again it's going to ask you twice. I don't know why it does this. Grow it again, and then there's a way to repeat the last operation you did in Maya, and that is to hit the G key. So if I hit the G key, it's just going to keep growing that selection until I get all those faces selected. So that's a few different ways to select these faces. And then once you have them selected, however you ended up doing it, you just hit delete, or backspace. I'm sorry, not PC, it's backspace. So now we have the opening here, and then we're going to start moving these vertices around. So let's go to vertex mode. So right click, go to vertex. So just select all the vertices. Let's scale this up a little bit and make it more of like a proportions we'd expect for like a bottle. And you can, just use your eye. You can make your bottle look short and stocky or tall and thin. However you want to make your bottle is up to you. I'm going to make mine about like that. And then I'm going to grab my move tool, hit the W key. And again, scale is the R key. And W is the move key. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, W is the move tool. So then, grab your move tool. We're just going to move up in Y. So that's just that one arrow. If I click in the middle of this like square and just kind of click, we're just going to kind of move it arbitrarily, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep it centered over the origin. And the way to do that is just to lock it to that Y axis by clicking on the green arrow and just moving it up on the green, and then coming around and just making sure that it's kind of sitting on the plane. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but just eyeball it as close as possible. And now we can start shaping our bottle. So we could grab just like the top half of these vertices just by drawing a box, and make sure that if you're at an angle and you draw a box like that, you're going to get an uneven selection. So I like to try to come more to the side and get it like that. Now you can hit the 4 key on the keyboard and go to wireframe and really see if you're just getting like a clean selection and not getting something like this. Like this, where you're kind of selecting half of a row. So select those, hit R for the scale tool, and let's scale those in to make it thinner, and then we'll scale them up on the Y. So the first thing I did was grab the scale tool, click in the middle to scale it in, and then just scale it along the Y axis like this. And maybe I want to make it a little bit wider. So that's kind of our upper part of our bottle shape. And then on the bottom, you would want to, I'm just going to kind of zoom in. I'm in wireframe. Again, 5 is shaded, 4 is wireframe. I can just see this circle. I want to select this circle of vertices, so I'm just going to draw a little box around it. That's the fastest way to do it. And then grab the move tool. Now I'm going to go back to shaded mode. If you hit A, it kind of frames everything in your scene. Go to shaded, kind of pan down, or tumble around so you can see the bottom. Now if I move this up, we're just kind of move like a hole, but I want like a fall off here, so I'm going to hit B to get my soft selection. Now if yours already looks like this, it might be your soft selection is turned on, which is fine. So if yours looks like this, where you have like this kind of pinkish orange fall off to black and then to the non-selected vertices, you could just hold down B, middle mouse drag left and right, and you could control the fall off of your soft selection. So I'm going to make mine so it affects most of the bottom but does not affect the sides. Something like this is fine. And then just pull up on that section of vertices. We get our little indentation on our bottle. And then we want to add some thickness to this guy. So let's do that. So the way you do that is you just go back to object mode, and we're going to use the extrude tool. Now you could either, and later we'll do this on the mug, you could either select like a face or a couple faces. I'm going to turn off my soft selection by tapping the B key just once. Turns that off. If I go to edit mesh and then go down to extrude, I could just pull this face out and